Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Cpac Now, America Uncanceled. And Mercy is canceled because she's still at the beach with our two older girls, but she's going to be back today at some point tonight. I don't know. We'll see. I hope she's coming back. I miss her. But we have a great show for you today. We're going to jump right into two really important questions. The first question is, does fake news promote fake polls? And what's really going on out there in the country? Is Joe Biden and all of his policies wildly popular, or is the truth of the matter slightly less so? First of all, we have one of our great board members, Jim McLaughlin, who is a great pollster, a pollster to President Donald Trump, someone who has been working with conservative candidates for decades. Jim McLaughlin, welcome to the show.
Matt, great to be here. Always a pleasure to be on with you.
Okay, let's jump into the numbers. You came out with a poll recently. You and I were talking about it as it came out. It really kind of is the rest of the story with all the coverage of Biden and polls.
Yep. Yeah, no question about it. And, you know, the press and the Democrats are trying to tell you, as you said, Joe Biden is this widely popular figure, where the truth of the matter is, yeah, his right now there was a Rasmussen poll that came out today. His favorable rating, his job approval was barely over 50%. When we did our poll a couple of weeks ago, we found his job approval was in the mid 50s. But when you look at the folks that tell you they strongly approve of him versus the folks that strongly disapprove, the numbers are even. As a matter of fact, President Trump, with all voters, has a significantly higher strongly approval than what Joe Biden has. So it's the proverbial mile wide, inch deep. And then when you start digging in deeper, voters by a 2-to-1 level, they give him negative ratings when it comes to dealing with issues like immigration. They prefer the Trump economic policies over him. And there was another good number that was put out there by Rasmussen. Only 36% of Americans considered his first 100 days in office a success. And that tells you a lot right there.
You know, they used to say Reagan was a Teflon president, that he had high personal approvals, but underneath, the national news media was always saying they were covering up scandals and that his policies weren't so popular. Are you trying to say that Joe Biden's numbers on his personal approvals seem to outperform the low ratings that his major socialist policies are getting?
No question about it. Think about it this way, too, is 64% of all voters say he's not going to finish his term. They don't think he's going to finish his term. Republicans overwhelmingly don't think he's going to finish his term. More than 2/3 of independents don't think he's going to finish his term. And about half of Democrats do not think Joe Biden is going to finish his term. So that's a real problem for him right there. And then the boom number. The boom number is we asked a head-to-head ballot between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And Donald Trump beats Kamala Harris by 4 points, 49-45, wins with independents, wins among seniors, wins among suburban voters, all those important key swing votes. President Trump is still beating Kamala Harris. So that spells some real trouble for the Democrats right now.
And she really hasn't poked above her. She seems to be upside down in most polls rather continually. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, she's a net negative. And when you think about it, all the positive coverage that the Biden-Harris administration is getting from the mainstream media, really, really bad sign for them. Because the fact that you're right, she is upside down among all voters right now. There's something about her that doesn't connect. And then also the fact that Joe Biden put her in charge of immigration, which voters view right now as the biggest failure of the Biden administration. And the reason why the immigration issue, even though, again, the press is trying to cover up all the problems that are going on right now down at the border, the American people are seeing right through it. It says two things about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It says, one, they're incompetent, and two, with these open border policies, they're extreme. And I think those numbers are going to get even worse. I mean, we've all seen that heart-wrenching video of that poor child that was just literally thrown over the
Terrible.
fence. Oh, it's just, I can't watch it. I mean, it's just a horrible horror. Here's this poor child just, screaming out for his family. And that didn't go on when Donald Trump was president. That was a big success in his administration. Folks said he couldn't get the immigration problem under control. He more than had it under control. And when you compare, by the way, we've seen polling that when you compare Donald Trump's job approval ratings versus Joe Biden on important issues, most voters, a majority of voters, agree with President Trump and where he was taking the country.
So, Jim, I want to talk about a little bit more on this question about what's going on at the southern border. If I look at Joe Biden's numbers on the economy, they're pretty good. If I look at Joe Biden's numbers on a Chinese corona, they're pretty good. If you're sitting in the White House working for Joe Biden, I'm not sure Joe Biden knows what's going on. You're looking at those numbers and you're saying, hey, this is what matters. This is the whole enchilada.
Yeah.
Is how do the American people think we're doing on these big issues? I'm going to argue that the open, porous border is really separating the Joe Biden coalition, because when you have huge numbers of blacks and Hispanics saying they don't like the idea that we have an open border where people can come in and take these jobs and they qualify for the social safety net, and when you see so many people coming into this country who might not even want to be a part of the great American experience, and the fact that we're not a socialist country, et cetera. Large numbers of Hispanics are really rejecting what's going on with these socialist governments to the south of us. Do you think that immigration alone is as big as a problem for Joe Biden in the midterms as I think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and you think about what happened in the last election. The reason why the president won decisive victories in both Texas and Florida was because of how well he did among Hispanic voters. In Florida, he got about 46% of the Hispanic vote. And in Texas, he got over 40% of the Hispanic vote. One of the main reasons was because of the immigration, and it was also because Hispanic voters despise socialism. Just what you were saying, and I've heard you talk about it in a very articulate manner. I've heard Mercedes talk about it in a very articulate manner. Whereas Hispanic voters in this country, they understand the problems, the failures of socialism better than most Americans do. They've come from these, countries where they've seen the problems and all the heartache that socialism has caused. And again, you saw it down in Florida. I would hear it time and time again from Hispanic voters, especially in focus groups. They would tell you that Joe Biden and the Democrats, they sound like the Maduros, the Ortegas, the Castros of the world. And they use the same kind of rhetoric. And now they're governing like socialists, which is scaring Hispanic voters even more. And I think what it's going to allow us to do is, we all saw in the last election, Donald Trump got record numbers of votes among blacks, especially among Hispanics. Now the challenge and the key for us, especially in the midterm elections, we want to expand upon those numbers and those votes that what President Trump received.
The other number that's really popped out to me that I have here from one of your competitors in the polling industry did a poll for the NRSC, and Hispanics reject socialism by just a number of 67%, which is along the lines of what your poll demonstrates. But also I found this very interesting. The belief that America is losing ground on traditional values was a similar number, right around 67%. The Democrats have always kind of fed this line that their progressive agenda is popular with minorities. Actually, their socialist agenda is popular with woke, white, urban, single, secular voters. With minorities, a lot of this anti-family, anti-traditional values, these policies are not popular. Are you seeing the same thing?
You are 100% correct, Matt. And there was other things that were going on during the pandemic, and we're seeing continuations of it. African American voters, Hispanic voters, they hated the fact they were locked out of their churches. And you're right. They are these black voters, these Hispanic voters, they are a great opportunity for us to expand the conservative coalition because they agree with us on issues like pro-family issues, pro-religious freedom issues. They are much more pro-life than those liberal woke white voters that you're talking about. And I really believe expanding our Hispanic coalition, expanding our coalition among black voters, it is the future of the Republican Party. And again, that's going to be the challenge for our next presidential candidate. It's going to be the challenge for our candidates in the midterms elections, in congressional Senate races, gubernatorial races. How do we expand that coalition? And I think, again, Donald Trump has put us in a real position to be able to do that because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they're connected with the woke elites and the corporate woke left and whatnot. That's not where middle America is right now. And I think the Republican Party has the ability to be able to connect with those voters. We're not the party of the corporatists anymore, the crony capitalists. We're the party of middle America, and that's going to be the future.
Yeah. So, Jim, as you know, as a board member of Cpac, we have Cpac in Dallas, July 9th through the 11th. Everybody should go to our website at conservative.org. The tickets are selling briskly. We're making announcements every day of who's coming. You're going to be there. Let me have you make a prediction. I know pollsters hate making predictions, but I'm going to make you make one. By July, when Cpac is raging in hot, sticky Dallas, which is going to have a big, full ballroom of wonderful, freedom-loving Americans listening to our heroes, what's going to be the number one issue?
I think it's going to be the economy and especially issues like inflation, because Americans want to get back to work. And I'm telling you, folks, you're seeing these numbers percolate right now because, you know, the press is trying to tell us and the Democrats are trying to tell us, oh, the economy's great now. Joe Biden got us out of COVID. Those were Donald Trump's successes. We would not be where we are right now without the miracle of Operation Warp Speed and the vaccines. That's all Donald Trump. And one of the biggest mistakes that they've made is they should be calling it the Trump vaccine because we wouldn't be here. That's what, you know, they say, oh, the Republicans aren't taking it, blah, blah. Nobody did more to get the vaccines into Americans' arms than Donald J. Trump did. And when, by the way, when you had Kamala Harris and you had Joe Biden saying that they weren't going to take the vaccine because it was Donald Trump's, you had Anthony Fauci, Saint Anthony, basically telling us that there is no way it's going to take at least 2 to 4 years for us to get the vaccine. Donald Trump was right on that issue, just like he was right on so many issues. And look, remember where Donald Trump had unemployment before the pandemic, 3.5%. We're at more than double that right now. And a lot of these blue states that have kept, you know, especially places like New York, New Jersey, California that have stayed in lockdowns, their economies are hurting. We see the price of gas going through the roof. Every time you go to the grocery store, people are paying more. And that's going to hurt the Democrats, and that's going to be their real Achilles heel. And I think come July, around the time of the conference, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to be there. I think you're going to start seeing some real erosion in Joe Biden's numbers.
I agree. And remember, when we have that inflation, what we don't have accompanied it is wage growth. And we actually had wage growth with low inflation, which meant the American people had much greater purchasing power. Jim McLaughlin, thanks for all the great work you do. Thanks for the work you do for President Trump and the great conservative candidates across the country. We look forward to seeing you in Dallas. And I don't care what anybody says, you're smarter and better looking than your brother.
No, we love my brother John. By the way, he's turning 65 too soon, so we got to give him a hard time.
God bless him. Well, he's got to make sure this economy stays together because he's about ready to retire. I mean, this is
no, he's too young to retire, and he's in too good a shape.
That's awesome. Okay, so thanks for joining us, Jim McLaughlin. Right back to Cpac Now, America Uncanceled after this short break. We wanted to show you this most interesting video that Mark Levin cut for us about the dangers of unverified voting represented in H.R. 1 and S1. Remember, the Constitution is very clear that states have the ability to set the rules on how we vote in this country. But Mark Elias, Stacey Abrams, and the Democrats are both fighting in the states while at the same time they undermine the constitutional right of states to regulate by pushing for a bill that would allow Congress to set all the rules. And I saw this in Nevada, I saw this in Georgia. The whole goal is to have dirty rolls, where it'd be racist to actually take people off the voting rolls because they've either died or moved or become ineligible in some way. And they want to make voter ID, once again, equivalent to pushing racism and voter suppression, which would allow for the first time in a major democracy that we could elect a president without voter verification and voter ID in these various jurisdictions. You know, we don't accept the results from elections, and they don't have certain democratic norms as a part of them. We call them free and fair elections. We ought to have those in America too. Listen to Mark Levin. As always, he says it much better than I can.
I want to talk to you about H.R. 1, the latest plot by the Democrats to destroy America and to destroy your vote and the voting franchise in America. Let's see, we've had signature checks since as long as I can remember, personal identification like a driver's license or some other official identification given to you by the government, the notion of one person, one vote, and enforcing that notion, in-person voting to permit the best orderly process with the highest integrity level of any voting system, no party operatives collecting ballots after the fact because you can see the potential for fraud in that respect. Elections must be over on Election Day to ensure, that, again, the integrity of the system. Voter lists must be checked for irregularities. People move, people die, people register one or two places as they move around. Those lists need to be clean. This is just half of what H.R. 1 eliminates. Eliminates. What kind of a political party would eliminate all these checks, all these traditional reviews of voting, and then claim if you oppose them, you must be a white supremacist who doesn't want minorities to vote? What kind of a political party uses black people, brown people, other people, all people, as an excuse to grab power and to destroy the greatest representative government on the face of the earth, to attack the parts of our voting system that ensure integrity, that have checks in place? Why is that considered an obstacle to voting? The Democrat Party wants to be the party that rules this country forever. They don't believe in party competition. They don't care about the integrity of the vote. They say every vote should count, when we know, in fact, every vote should not count. Only every legal vote should count. And under H.R. 1, they don't talk about citizens voting. They talk about individuals voting. In addition, they would register 16 and 17-year-olds, just in case for the future so they're able to vote, with no ability to check whether or not they are voting or not, or illegal aliens are voting or not. This isn't reform, this is destruction. This is the final nail in the heart of this republic. They have taken the disasters that occurred in 2020 and they've multiplied them by 1,000. And then they put the word reform in front of it, and if you oppose it, well, clearly, you're a racist. We must oppose this with every fiber of our activist being if we support a truly representative government.
And now for Regina's favorite segment, some good news. The first piece of good news is we have new Cpac merch on our website. I hope you can see this. It's called our Cpac Texas coffee mug. There is not coffee in this mug, there's water. And this was our old Cpac mug that we used when we first started the show. All this stuff is available. Why do I bring up the Texas mug? Because as you know, we're going to be in Texas. Hope you're following us on social media. as we announce all of our great speakers. A lot of big names still to come this week. And even more good news to Billy Thomas, who sent me the nicest note and wants me to sign something for him. You're going to get one of these wonderful mugs in the mail, and thank you for your kind comments. We love getting the letters from people that are encouraging us to keep doing what we're doing. You know, even in the swamp, I'll have people come up and say encouraging things more times than they call me a swear word. Believe it or not, more times it's positive than negative, even here. I can't imagine what it would be in a flyover country or red states. When I go there, I feel so much like life is normal again. So maybe we're gonna have to move there, I don't know. And then of course, the best news of all, as I said at the start of the show, was that Mercy and my two older girls are coming back from the beach. You can see they've been enjoying themselves by this beautiful picture of them. Those kids are growing up fast and they're entering a really troubling world. It's our job as adults to make this world a little more normal, a little more low-key, a little more hospitable to people who love the country, love military, think cops are necessary, and think one of the greatest documents ever produced was the U.S. Constitution, and it should be honored. And those are the moments we're in. These are the times we're in. We appreciate you tuning in. Great job, Jim McLaughlin, walking us through the latest poll numbers. We get such great feedback when Jim McLaughlin's on the show. We're going to keep having him on. If you have any questions about what's going to go down at Cpac in Dallas, give us a call here at the American Conservative Union. Go to our website at conservative.org. Have a great rest of your day.